Well, hello everyone, and you join us here today to talk about cool watches that even the snobbiest of snobs can't turn their noses up at. Well, good morning, Tom, and how are you doing? Are you feeling anti-snobberific?
Always. I like to keep it real. I like to keep it affordable, you know me.
Well, that's just as well because, Tom, we are going to talk about 10 affordable watches that even watch snobs, they just can't say no to. The idea is that we have picked 10 watches that are both good value for money at the lower end of the pricing scale that also have a certain little I don't know what about them that just makes them irresistible. It's a pretty high bar to hit, I think, because you're going for the kinds of cheap watches that even people with Pateks and other fancy things in their collection would still purchase. They do exist, but they have been hard to find. How's it for you, Tom?
Well, I've just picked the watches that I just recommend to everyone anyway. I strongly believe that these should be in your collection anyway, whether they're your first watch or you've already got a load of Rolexes.
Well, that's exactly the same approach that I've taken. And between us, we've picked 5 each. Here we go, Tom. Why don't you go first?
Okay, so my first pick is from Studio Underdog, and specifically the Watermelon watch. So Studio Underdog is a one-man band of Richard Bentz, who started designing his own watches during lockdown, having worked at Braun watches.
Some might say brown.
Some might. Half their company might say brown, half of them might not. So they're really fun, colourful designs, and they're sort of design-led, I would say. It's all popping off on the dial. So particularly the Watermelon watch, which is a lovely clash of luminous green and pink. It's a stainless steel watch with a diameter of 38.5 millimeters. So, you know, that's going to wear like a 38 millimeter or a 39 millimeter, depending on how you look at it. But that's a lovely size. It's a chronograph and it's got great attention to detail. The way the dial is laid out, you've got that nice big chronograph dial there, and you've got your little indices around the edge of the dial, little watermelon pips. It all just feels very, very considered and cohesive. Nicely put together, great build quality. It's got a seagull movement inside, but it actually looks fantastic. It's quite nicely finished. You wouldn't be afraid to take it off and show it to a snob, and they would have nothing negative to say about it. It's £500, but be ready to just wait on the website and click when it goes live, because they're in high demand.
I mean, saying that you hate this watch is like saying that you hate sunshine and puppies, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
It's just so radiant and pure and enjoyable that you can't hate on it.
I think that's going to be the theme for most of my picks, is if you hate it, then there's something wrong inside of you, not the watch.
I too have gone for a watch for my first one that's fun. It's a bit more subtle in the use of colour. You can get a more colourful version of this. This is the Brew Metric. Now, I would say ignore the name, unless you are massively into coffee, because this is a watch that's been designed for like wearing while you sip on your coffee that you've made with a steam train. You'll even notice that the logo on the dial is a little coffee bean. So unless you're into knitting your own vintage sweaters and restoring your own cars, just have a look at the watch itself, because the Metric, I think, has managed to take all the essence of what's popular in watches right now, integrated bracelet, 70s look, that TV dial, and design it in a way that feels wholly original and unique. I think this is mostly down to just the kind of the slick lines. It's not a fussy looking watch, and the placement of the subdials on the dial, the use of colour, it feels very well designed. It feels like the Studio Underdog. It has that, a designer worked on this and they thought about it kind of feel. It's 36mm across by 41mm tall, so it wears really nicely. That's a sapphire crystal, 50 metres water resistance, which isn't too bad for a chronograph. And you get the VK68 Mecha Quartz, as you often find in many affordable chronographs that choose to go down that route. At $425, about £380. But I just really like the layering, even the coffee bean logo, the way it's just embedded into the dial, the way the subdials have that layering. It just feels really, I don't know, it's like an ice pole.
Yeah, I totally agree. It looks very design-led again, doesn't it? It feels like when you talk about the layering, it looks like it was designed on sheets of acetate laid over one another.
Yes, yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it's a really cool looking watch.
It looks like the kind of watch that a person who designs British cars would wear.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's no one cooler than a British car designer who sticks with that company that consistently fails to hit its financial targets, but ultimately is just effortlessly cool.
Yeah, cool. So I'm taking it back to basics for my next pick. This is the Seiko 5 Sports Heritage. To reiterate, this is something I would just recommend if someone was like, I don't know what watch to get. Seiko 5, just, away you go. So the 5 in the Seiko 5 model line refers to the 5 core features of the watch: automatic movement, day-date display, water resistance, recessed crown at the 4 o'clock position, and case and bracelet built for durability. Now that last point is the durability. These are chunky watches that you can thrash about and do anything with, and they will serve you well. They are just incredibly well put together watches that you can't argue with. Unfussy, loads of great styles, and it's only going to set you back £250 for all that.
This has a place in every collection, without a shadow of a doubt. Tom, this is the brand Isotope, and it popped up in 2016. It's an English brand, and they have a fascination with science, hence the name Isotope. And it just so happens that the name Isotope was coined by a Scottish doctor called Margaret Todd. And so the guys at Scottish Watches thought, hello, here's a thing that we can lean on here. And so they commissioned a specific watch, the Hydrium Alba. Now, Alba is Scottish Gaelic for Scotland. They also have an enamelled white dial, with the lacrima motif, which is that teardrop-shaped thing in the middle. And then you have heat-blued hands. So, of course, combining the white and the blue gives you the Scottish flag. It's got the Swiss Landeron caliber 24 in it, 300 metres of water resistance, a 120 click sapphire bezel, although it is blank, so kind of moot. But overall, I think it's one of those watches where you go, hello, what's that? If you were to throw a price at it, you'd probably, some people might go high, some people might go low. It's just got that universality about it, and I think it's quite interesting. About $1,000 or £840, and just the simplicity, but the emphasis on the details, like the knurling on the crown and the bezel, the flatness of the case. It's very not try hard. Whatever the opposite of try hard is, it's not try hard.
I love the blank bezel. It's great.
Well, so you can click that around and not worry about having to center it again. You can just click it to your heart's content.
That is actually a genius innovation. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to wheel out another old faithful here with a straight up Casio G-Shock GA2100 from the Octagon series. Now, if you're currently making a TV show with a cop in it, a police officer, you're going to need a watch for them. And the only reason the G-Shock exists is so that police officers can wear them in TV programs. There are many styles you can choose from. You can go for the ultra shock absorbing resin. You can go for a stealthy all black look, or you can go for something funky and neon or translucent or whatever. But there's also just recently the full metal edition, which gives you all of those awesome G-Shock features, but in a solid metal case. It's slightly more expensive in full metal than its resin equivalent, that being £100, this being nearly £500.
This is tactical. That's tactical and cool put together, yeah?
Nice. Do they use that? They should do, shouldn't they?
I'm sure I read it somewhere.
Fair enough.
This is the kind of watch where it's cool enough that people are like, hey, and then people who have spent a load of money on their watches look at their watch and look at that watch and feel a bit silly. Like, oh, this old thing. Oh, yeah, I just threw it on. It's nothing important. Effortlessly stylish. Very cool. Nicely affordable. What's not to like? Get it in your collection.
Yeah.
What you should also get in your collection, Tom, is a little something called the 556A from Sinn, or Sinn. I haven't quite found out which yet. This watch was created by founder Helmut Sinn. He founded the company in 1961. He was a former pilot, and so a lot of his designs were inspired by the instrument gauges in the aircraft that he flew. That's very apparent here. You get 38.5mm of stainless steel, a Sellita SW200 Swiss-made automatic movement, sapphire, it's anti-magnetic too, 200 metres of water resistance, it's $1,100, which is a little on the higher side of some of these, but I just couldn't help but pick it because it's really one of those one and done kind of cool watches that you'd expect to see on the wrist of a president or the leader of a tech company, and it's just like, that's their one watch and they don't care and they wear it everywhere. You might also notice it looks very similar to a Bell & Ross minus the square case. And that's because, and this is the ultimate cool, I think, Sinn actually helped Bell & Ross get started. They made their earlier watches for them, and there were some watches that you could purchase the identical watch with either name on, and Bell & Ross then took the aviation instrument concept to the extreme with the BR series. But this is the OG, as I understand people say. Very crisp, very clear, lots of luminous loveliness going on, like contrast up the wazoo. It's like reading a newspaper. And if you were to describe a watch that is legible and clear and cool and unfussy, this is it.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, you'd be hard pressed to find anything to complain about, wouldn't you? I don't think it's Sinn or Zinn, I think it's Zen. Just chill, a meditative watch.
And if you don't like the numbers, there's a version without those too, so cool your cucumbers.
Yeah, even more meditative. Okay, cool. So from something quite monochromatic to something very colourful, this is the Mr. Jones Watches Colour Venn watch. In addition to looking like a graphic on a 70s educational children's programme, it's also a watch. So here you have 3 coloured discs that all indicate one aspect of time telling. The cyan is the hour hand, the magenta is the minute hand, and the yellow is the second hand. And you can see precisely where they're pointing with a little fine white line there on the edge of each disc. And as they rotate around telling the time, the discs overlap and create new colours, which is lovely. So Mr. Jones are gaining popularity lately for their quirky watches that tell the time in different manners, and this is a really fun one, I think. And the actual Venn diagram goes watches I like, watches Snobs like, and then Mr. Jones watches in the middle, which everyone likes. So this fun watch will cost you £445 because there's actually a Swiss movement inside. Ooh. The STP-1-11 Swiss-made automatic movement.
Well, I don't know about you, Tom, but I am sick to the back teeth of people asking me to explain to them subtractive colour theory. And with this watch, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
we move in very different circles.
This was genuinely created as a representative of the scientific principles of subtractive colour theory. And it does exactly that. You get to enjoy why things work how they do, how light and colour do work how they do in the real world, in an example that is fun and not boring, like most of the way I was taught things in school. Anyway, next I've got for you, Tom, a watch that is just hard to argue with because of the quality to cost ratio. This is the Christopher Ward C63 Sealander. You've got 39mm of stainless steel, a Solita SW200 sapphire crystal, 150 meters of water resistance. It comes in under $1,000, about £770. And it's not a watch that's going to blow your socks off when it comes to crazy cool styling, but you can pick some cool colours for it. And just the build quality of it is just, it's one of those in the know type of watches, I think. You know, like when people buy something and everyone else is like, that's not a thing that people know about, but the people who do know that it's good. And the people who have expensive stuff also like to be known for knowing what the good things are, and so they know that this one is worth knowing, you know?
No. I know it's a freaking cool looking watch. I love it. Again, it's that crispness, isn't it? I should really consider white more. Just looks, really fresh and clean, doesn't it? And with those orange pops, I don't want to say Explorer, but I've done it now. But really, really cool.
And they do, if you prefer to have it in a different colour, they do have a minty green, reminiscent of a certain popular jeweller.
Oh, you mean Lucerne Blue? Very nice.
They've got a nice terracotta-y red, darker greens, blues, the whole works. Even the snobbiest people can't resist good bang for the buck, and this is one of the best. In fact, as we heard from when we spoke to Mike France recently, he said if someone can find something that's better quality for the money, they can have the watch. Hopefully I haven't misphrased that and done him out of a load of watches. But as a pretty good guarantee, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Again, this is another big gun that we've been tooting the horn of for a little while. It's a gun and a horn. It's the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. We've spoken earlier about iconic 1970s design. And it is, with the honeycomb motif dial as well, a steel case with those lovely polished hard lines and satin finished details. Powermatic 80 caliber inside with 80 hours of power reserve. Yeah, awesome watch. Due to its boxy integrated nature, might be a little bit on the big side for a slender wrist type like myself, but luckily Tissot's got you covered, and there's 36 mils available, and a whole range of colours and waffle versus non-waffle, I guess pancake. Yeah, really cool, fun watch, hard to argue with again. I mean, I'd like to see you try. What would you say? I prefer Royal Oaks.
Yeah, it's the kind of watch you can use to upset people who own Royal Oaks. The waffle that they have not just on the dial, but also spewing forth from their mouths about the 1970s of their watch. They go, blah, 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 Royal Oak, Gerald Genter, blah, blah. And you go, oh yeah, oh cool, that's interesting. Oh yeah, my watch is kind of like that. And then they then spend the rest of the evening looking at their watch, wondering if they made the right decision.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to upset anyone or put anyone down. We just want to offer a nice selection of watches that everyone can enjoy.
What can be less snobby than the idea of letting everyone enjoy something?
Nice.
It's perfect, isn't it? Even the snobs can't hate on that. And if they even try, then, well, I think probably they'll implode under their own snobbery when it comes to this watch.
Yeah.
It's lovely and I like it. Tom, for my last watch that I think snobs absolutely cannot hate, I have gone with the fairer Ainsdale II. 40mm of stainless steel, sapphire crystal, 50 metres of water resistance, a split-second flyback chronograph.
What?
$650, that's around £535.
Wow.
How is this possible? Through the magic of a Swiss Etta quartz, the 251.294.
Uh-huh.
But it gives you all of that juicy functionality. But really the benefit, I think, is the fact you get that extra pusher, you get the extra hands, the whole thing together looks like the kind of watch that someone who drives an open-top car and wears goggles might be enjoying. It doesn't matter, that open-top car could be a £500 banger that's falling apart, or it could be a massive supercharged Bentley. Jay Leno could be driving it. Both of those guys could be wearing that watch and they would look equally as good. Now, I think...
Hot stuff.
I think the kinds of cars where you have to wear goggles on are the great equalizer of man. No matter how wealthy or how poor you are, you all look the same. And that's where this watch is appealing to. You could be a snob and wear this and hang around with all your Patek buddies, or you could wear this to McDonald's and be like, oh, yellow and red.
Excellent.
It works. It works everywhere. It works everywhere. And for $650 dues, snobs need not apply and cannot apply. There is no line on this form for snobs to fill in.
Yeah, it's a lovely watch. I love the vintage stylings, the nice vintage little pushers and that onion crown. Yeah, I love the pop of red and yellow. It's really nice. Little recessed subdials there. Lovely. Very nice, very nice. They've got a great selection, Fairer. One to keep an eye on. I like a lot of their colourways as well. Nice and minty fresh, some of them, which is fun.
Lovely, lovely, delicious stuff. Now, dear viewer and listener, if you consider yourself a watch snob, tell us why we got these wrong and make some suggestions yourself. If you're not a watch snob, tell us which ones you think you would add to this list to knock those snobs over. Thank you so much for listening. Please do like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.